r/AskReddit by Planet Reddit. Officers and deputies. Ever put an unsuspecting a-hole in his place while off duty? Here's what happened tonight. I went on a field trip with my children to the pumpkin farm a few years back, which included my 2-year-old daughter. It was all mommies and one other guy beside me. I gravitated towards him and we started chatting. We all got on the local public bus to go to the pumpkin farm. The driver of the bus was insane. He drove about 20 miles per hour over the speed limit, ran 2 red lights, and ended up slamming on the brakes to avoid an accident on the second red light, launching my daughter into the back of the seat in front of her. She was alright, but cried hysterically. When we stopped, I had one of the mommies get off with my kids and went up to the driver and started ripping into him. I was ready to fight. I was so pissed. I suddenly hear a calm voice from behind me say, "I'll handle this," and turn around to the other dad holding a badge. He then asks the driver for his driver's license. Turns out that other dad was a highway patrolman. The driver was terminated. Terminated? Like killed? With extreme prejudice. My dad was driving his undercover car one day, and this guy comes weaving down the lane doing about 30 over the speed limit. He finally gets right next to my dad, who gets right behind the car that was the next lane over, so that this guy can't pass. The guy starts going apeshit. He's flipping out, giving my dad the finger, yada yada, and finally swerves at him. My dad just laughs, flips on the lights and siren. He said as the guy pulled over he could literally see him banging his head into the steering wheel. How do people not see cop signs on undercover cars when that close? An extra antenna or two. Bulba. Lights inside the vehicle. Extra electronics. etc. I'm pretty good at seeing those things. But when I saw someone had been pulled over by a blue minivan, I gave up speeding. This was in the newspaper in Windsor, Ontario recently. Off-duty cops saw a kid going car to car checking for unlocked cars. The cop reclined his chair so he wasn't visible. Kid opens undercover cop's car. Promptly gets arrested. I get arrested for this all the time in GTA 4. My tactic in GTA 3. Try locked passenger door. Wait for officer to exit the vehicle. See which way around he runs at you. Run the other way. Get in by newly opened driver's door. Drive away. Works every time. My dad's friend's sister used to be an FBI agent. She had this one story. Although I think it's more a story of idiocy than putting somebody in their place. So there was a bank. One day some guy walked in with a note asking for money. Typical robbery. However, when the teller started reading it, she started laughing. This moron decided to rob a bank that was next to an FBI building. Of course. All the agents did their banking there. And there was always at least 5 or 6 agents in there at any one time. From the way she tells it, as one agent was arresting the guy, there was a train of 10 or so agents walking by showing their badges. Huh. That building next to the bank has a big ass sign saying Federal Bureau of Investigation. Haha. What a weird name. I'd abbreviate that. Oh. Well. Time to rob this beach. It was abbreviated. The robber thought it was the local Flowers by Irene store. So I draw my Glock on him and yell the standard orders at him. Big Mac, large fries, chocolate milkshake. Liter of cola. I don't want a large fava. Good. Nice to see instant justice. Fresh squeezed justice. New. Justice juice TM. With added pulp. Colon. What the duck was wrong with this guy? He wants to bash someone's head in with a piece of concrete because he bumped into him? Jesus. Did you ever get the full story there? Some people are dunce. And getting drunk makes them flappy dunce. I don't get why people with warrants out typically seem to be the belligerent a-holes. If I had warrants out, I would be as low-key as possible. Then again, I guess most law-abiding citizens are pretty low-key and respectful. Good job. I've never understood this either. Half the time you see something like, he was speeding and when he was pulled over the officer found he was wanted for X, Y, and Z. If I'm wanted for just X, you damn well better believe I'd be following the letter of the law to a T. If I'm wanted for Y, I'm not even driving. I'm just a passenger. And if I'm wanted for Z, duck it, I'm taking the bus instead. McJustice. Fries sold separately. Before college, I moved around a lot due to my dad being an FBI agent. At this particular time, my family and I lived in Las Vegas. And let's just say my dad was a very high level exec at the office there. This is a man in his 50s who is far beyond his fieldwork days, but always insists on carrying his secondary. One day he's just getting some gas at a gas station when he sees a very excited woman come out of the convenience store. She had apparently just hit the jackpot at the gas station slots. Yes, they are everywhere in Las Vegas. The woman enters the bathroom around the side of the building. And after a little while my dad hears screaming and struggling. He rushes around to see what's happening and catches a man running out of the women's bathroom. My dad immediately draws his weapon from his ankle holster. Yells stop. FBI. Gets the guy on the ground with his hands on his head. Then cuffs and arrests him. The man was indeed robbing the woman of her winnings. And got hauled off by the police after my dad waited out some very intimidating community confrontation without any backup. You cops definitely know how this is. For those of you who don't get the same weight of this that I do, this type of situation is incredibly uncommon for FBI agents. Especially for senior execs. Anyway, what bad luck for the mugger to have an FBI agent arrest him immediately after committing the crime. If karma is real, it certainly was a beach to this guy. Serves him right. Didn't happen to me. But some dumbasses in my town got the brilliant idea to go around shooting people with an airsoft gun as they drove around. Turns out, one of the people they shot at was an off-duty cop. He drew his weapon and was a fraction of a second away from shooting one of them right in the face. They were lucky that the cop saw the orange tip. This happened to my sister when a teenager. She would hang out with these idiot boys who like to do that. He shot a jogger in the back of the head. But it was right before their destination. Jogger ran down their car and pulled a gun on them. Turns out he was a Secret Service agent. He went straight from small misdemeanors, minor smoking, stealing, to a federal offense for assaulting a federal officer. I'm a police firearms officer in the UK, bit like SWAT in America. Me and a colleague were driving through a reasonably large town that we work in around midday. We were in civvies and an unmarked car. There had been loads of jewelry shop robberies recently, so we were going along checking everyone was okay. We pulled up and entered one of them to chat to some of the people we know. My colleague went out the back to check some CCTV when a rather large gentleman enters the shop with a long coat on. He hands the assistant a note that read, "I have a gun. Don't piss me off. I will shoot you. Give me all your jewels." That is how he spelled it. The assistant shrieked, which put matey boy off. Next thing he knew, he was face down on the floor with a Glock muzzle in the back of his neck. Never before have I seen a grown man cry as much as he did. Justice Duckface. All rise for the Honorable Justice Duckface. Brit here. I was really confused by your diagram until I remembered that you drive on the right and are going anti-clockwise around the drive-thru. Another British word to add to my collection. We say counterclockwise. Have you heard flyover instead of overpass? Who the ducks attack people just so they can cut in line for fast food? Short answer. Tweakers. Waffle House. Why would someone be a prick there? You've got waffles. I don't know about you, but in order to go to a Waffle House, I gotta be damn near blackout drunk. Am I the only sober person that actually enjoys a Waffle House? This should be getting more attention. Police get sworn at more often than thanked. And that sucks. Thanks for being a good guy, cop. That's because they are often involved with criminals who are being arrested. Not the happiest type. This story definitely belongs on r/justiceaporn. I don't know. I'll be badgered to death for proof that I can't provide right now. If someone else wants to link, feel free. Okay, so I just posted this injustice porn a few days ago, but I'll repost here. Disclaimer. I'm not a cop, it just happened to be good timing. So I worked at a buffet in a bad neighborhood. And occasionally they would get people who would dine and dash. One particularly busy lunch hour, I was at the window section. and had just finished clearing up after a bus with my workmate. There are 3 sections in the buffet, which open close every 3 to 4 hours as to be able to rotate people on and off shifts, and 2 servers per section. So about 6 servers. 4 busboys, hosts, bar staff, buffet staff running food and so on. There's a group of about 4 kids in the section farthest from the windows and front door where I am. Near the bathrooms past the buffet. One of them hands the server in that section a debit card, and when she turns around to get the machine they try booking it for the door. Emphasis on try. Remember, it's a crowded restaurant and they got to go past 2 sections. The buffet and the front cash. Only 2 got to the door. Now you may think okay, 2 out of 4 isn't bad. But there happened to be 2 cops with cars talking to a woman outside. I don't know what happened to her, but she had been talking to them upset for about an hour. We all chase the 2 thieves out the door. See the cops and shout that they didn't pay. The parents were apologetic to us and paid for the meal. A couple of the fathers looked ready to tear their kids a new one. I honestly felt bad for the parents. But the method of capture was epic. TL. Dr. 4 kids tried to dine and dash. 2 stopped by staff. 2 run down by cops and football player who happened to be out front and dragged back by their ears. Parents called. Paid for meal. Gave their kids shit. My dad wasn't a cop. But this story is McDonald's related and duck it. I just like telling the story. So my dad, who was a rather unassuming guy with average build and stature, takes 10-year-old me through the drive-thru at McDonald's. I'm taking a few seconds too long to decide which milkshake I want, and the guy behind starts beeping his horn repeatedly and making hurry the duck up gestures from his car. My dad leans out the car and asks the guy if there is a problem. Said meathead jumps out his car in his stereotypical bodybuilder pants and starts marching towards the car shouting and yelling, "I'm shitting myself here." So my dad turns to me and says, "1 minute. Don't leave the car. Get out." Walks towards the approaching aggressive idiot and just plants a clean headbutt straight on his nose. Blood everywhere. Then he grabs hold of him and proceeds to throw him through his open car window. Turns out the nose smashed dude has a friend in the car who made the probably wise decision to stay seated. And that was the day I learned my dad really could beat up your dad. TL. Doctor, my dad can beat up your dad. My dad is a pretty reserved guy and all of my friends comment about how nice he is. Always follows all the rules and has a great set of morals I've witnessed come into effect. Then I went to his hometown and met some of his high school friends, and apparently my dad was an absolute badass who would kick the shit out of anyone. I heard so many stories. It was wild how high school dad and now dad vary so wildly. For future reference, they're called Zubaz pants. Also, your dad is awesome. I have an unmarked I drive both on and off duty. There are few things more satisfying than the look on some dongbag's face when I flick on the lights after he's been cutting in and out of traffic at 100 miles per hour. Of course, I can't write tickets, so I just yell at him and leave. The twist. It's gonna be a rough day for criminals. I am not in Leo, but I was in line at the post office when somebody tried to cut in front of a plainclothes Leo. I am a police officer with City Police Department, and I'm telling you to get to the back of the line. That guy had the longest crawl in front of the withering gazes of a long line of citizens to get there. Assault creating fear. Whoever wrote that law must have a philosopher. Most people don't understand assault and battery. The guy didn't have to touch anything to be charged with assault. All he needed to do was act in a threatening manner. That's simple assault creating fear. Super simple way of explaining this to people. Assault is when you threaten to hurt someone. Battery is when you actually do it. Most states have 2 different versions of both of these. The misdemeanor version and the felony version. In Texas I believe they are called simple assault battery, misdemeanor version, and aggravated assault battery, felony version. If you threaten to punch someone in the face, that's simple assault, misdemeanor. When you actually do it, that's simple battery. If you threaten to shoot stab someone and are immediately capable of carrying it out, that is, you have a gun knife in your hand at the time, that's aggravated assault, felony. When you actually do it, that's aggravated battery, felony. Presuming you don't kill them in the process, at which point it would turn into either manslaughter or murder, likely murder if there's a lethal weapon involved. I am friends with a guy whose father is an FBI SWAT in LA. He told me this story once. He and his unit were dispatched to bring in a wanted felon and assist with a drug ring bust. His unit gears up and loads into an unmarked white van, tinted windows. Wearing full SWAT gear. They are parked a few blocks away from where the drug deal is going down, waiting to be called in. Two men approach the vehicle and proceed to attempt to break in and steal it. My friend's father, who is in the passenger seat, throws his door open, knocking one of the guys down. Gets out with his MP5 and points it at the guy, now on the ground. FBI mother ducker. You're under arrest. This is a good cop story. I am 28, never in my life been pulled over. I drive a little fast, but then again I do live in NJ. I tried making a red light, being as if I didn't it was going to be a rough stop. Cop pulls me over and instead of being a douche I hand him my paperwork, say good morning officer. He asks me do I know why I pulled you over? And I say yes sir, I ran a red light. And informed him it wasn't my intention to, I just didn't want to slam on my brakes. 20 seconds later he returns and says he's not giving me a ticket because of my attitude and honesty, something he hasn't seen in 3 months. A lot of people hate cops, I'm sure there are some bad eggs. But I respect cops 110%. Any man woman willing to risk like every day for, in my opinion, way too low pay for life risking. All respect given. Show your respect. And more likely than not, you will receive it in kind. Well done. When I was a kid, my sister and I were riding home with my dad in his pickup. Some guy was tailgating us, honking and swerving from side to side trying to get around. When my dad got to a stop sign he waved the guy around. Instead the guy got out of his car and came towards us. My dad got out and the guy started yelling and my dad was like, "You don't want to do this, buddy." The guy took a swing and my dad sidestepped him and in a flash had him spun around with his arm behind his back in a crazy wrist lock. The guy was howling like a puppy as my dad walked him back to his car and shoved him in and told him to go home. A couple of weeks later the guy was at a block party telling our neighbors about the maniac in the old red Ford. They told him, "You're lucky that's all that happened, that guys know to carry a gun. That's what's wrong with this country. Maniacs like that running around with guns." Well, he is on T-Highway patrol. The guy came over to my dad and me and apologized for his behavior. I gotta say, it's exactly things like these that make me want to go into law enforcement. I'm currently studying in college, but I plan one day to get into the FBI. At least that's my goal. I'll probably do police work to get ready for it. Putting dumb shits in jail who think they can get away with this kind of thing just because there is no marked car present. Those are the best stories to hear. Keep up the good work in law enforcement, since the only thing we hear about these days are the bad or rotten cop stories. This is nice to see. I'll be honest. If you want to go federal, go military first. Pick a job that gets you a security clearance. It's what I should have done, but didn't. Stop resisting those delicious fries and McNuggets. The cop in this story wasn't off duty, but the unsuspecting a-hole got quite a shock. My wife was sitting at a red light next to the parking lot at our local shopping mall, with a police cruiser sitting in the lane next to her. As they're stopped, a guy in the parking lot wins back and decks the woman he's with. My wife says she'll never forget the look on the guy's face when the cruiser lit up. The cop was over the curb, out of his car, and had the guy on the ground before the light even turned green. Random bad story of justice my brother distributed. A man was drinking and beating his girlfriend. My family was on the porch just enjoying the night. We hear the slaps and screams and run out to the scene that is now in the middle of the street. My brother tell Hein to knock it off. This guy starts throwing full tall boys at us. My brother is a baseball and basketball player, so he caught one before it exploded and threw it back at the guy and hit him. We all took off running toward him, and about halfway there he pulls a gun and starts throwing it around. My brother isn't a fighter and has never fought before, but his balls became steel and he ran as fast as he could at the guy and jump kicked him. The guy went flying. The gun flew to God's nowhere. My brother punched the guy out into sleep like Anderson Silva and took my shoelace and used it to cuff the dude. He got arrested and my brother got handshakes. Was so sure of a sick ending when you mentioned the shoelace. Strangled idiot would probably be a bit over the top. Good work your brother. It was my first driving lesson where I actually got to go somewhere. Instead of donging around in the parking lot, a-hole swerves in front of MW, runs a red light, and hits a car in front of me. The car he hit turned the sirens on. Never laughed harder in my life. So I draw my Glock on him and yell, "Some fries mother ducker." I wish there were more cops out there like you. I see people getting away with the craziest shit, mostly involving driving, on a daily basis. But I get pulled over the second my light bulb on my turn signal goes out. When I worked night shift, I saw so many deputies using their lights and sirens just because they don't feel like waiting at a red light. Even some that didn't bother to use their lights and sirens and caused accidents. Since we're not a major metropolitan force, we tend to not be dongheads because the likelihood of someone recognizing us is too great. I can't say for other larger departments though. I try to be easygoing with most people. If I see someone not wearing their seatbelt or going just a touch too fast, I'll just holler out the window at them or flash my lights. I'm not going to hassle them because we all live busy lives. Other guys just let the power go to their heads. They forget that we're public servants, not domestic overlords. The things I do on the job are to make people's lives safer, not to be a dong just for spite. And even though my unmarked can be spotted a mile away, it's still fun to surprise an overly aggressive driver who never saw me coming. It's definitely the opposite in large cities. In the Tampa area, I can count on one hand the number of decent cops I've met. There's one in particular however that is the domestic overlord. My first encounter with him was when I was 14. Walking home from getting a soda at a gas station. Lights come on from behind me. I kept walking thinking a car was going to come flying by in a second. I had my headphones on and didn't hear him calling out to me. He tackles me, goes through my pockets, calls me a liar when I tell him I'm 14, and eventually lets me go after realizing he wasn't going to find anything illegal. A couple years later he flips his lights on and whips around and corner and handcuffs me for attempting to steal a car. He didn't seem to understand that it was my car, and it was broken down. Another time when I'm helping a friend install a stereo in their car. 11 years and 2 cars later, this same guy has pulled me over at least twice a year since I got my license. I've started recording him when he does it at this point. Unfortunately around here, the good cops are outnumbered by the shitty cops. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for 3 videos a day.